Welcome to the next presentation in our series designed to help businesses making small amounts of hazardous waste comply with New Hampshire's rules. In this presentation, we're going to talk about the first few pages of the VSQG self-certification form. We're also going to share a little information about the second form known as the RCRC Site Identification Form. As part of the VSQG self-certification program, you'll be mailed or emailed two forms. The first is the VSQG self-certification form, which you'll use to self-inspect your waste storage area, get you more familiar with your waste at your business, and introduce you to the rules that apply to them. This form might seem a little intimidating at first because it's 6 pages long, but we made these presentations to walk you through each page and help explain what we're asking for. You can watch these presentations at your own speed and re-watch things that you forgot or found hard to understand. The second form you'll get is called the RCRC Site Identification Form, which we also call the RCRC form. You may have heard us call this the notification form in the past, since it's the form you use to notify us of your hazardous waste activities. This form is filled out by every business that makes, transports, or receives hazardous waste, and it's used to tell NHDES general information about your business and the hazardous waste activities that go on there. We're only going to look at the notification form very briefly and spend almost all of our time discussing the self-certification form. Let's start by looking at the front page of the self-certification form. Here's what it looks like. The front page of the form asks for information describing your business name, address, and EPA identification number. If you aren't sure of your EPA ID number, you can look at a recent hazardous waste shipping paper or manifest for your site. Once you're sure the information is correct, turn the page to Section A of the form. Here we're asking for contact information and more detailed description of your business and its location. This may look like it's asking for the same information that's on the cover sheet, and for some businesses, that's true. However, often the facility that is the VSQG isn't the same location as the person who's the correct contact, such as if a business has multiple locations and one person is responsible for several sites. We also ask for who the property owner is on line number 4. When we say property owner, we're referring to the owner of the dirt that the business sits on. In many cases, the property owner is the same as the business owner, but it doesn't always have to be. Many businesses rent the space that they operate in. This information is especially important because if a business ever closes and abandons their hazardous waste at the site, the property owner could still be liable for the removal of the hazardous waste. In Section B, we ask how big of a hazardous waste generator you are. As I mentioned in an earlier presentation, when we use the term generator, it means someone who makes or creates hazardous waste. Depending on how much hazardous waste you make or you store, you'll be classified as one of these size generators. There are 2 size groups of hazardous waste generators determined by how much waste you make or you have accumulated on site. Businesses that make a lot of hazardous waste have more rules and are required to attend a full-day training event, but don't need to fill out this form. These generators are known as small or large quantity generators. If a business makes small amounts of hazardous waste, they have way less regulations, but need to complete this form as a way to get educated in what they're required to do with their waste. These are known as very small quantity generators, or VSQGs. Section B of this form asks you to look at how much waste you make in a calendar month and figure out which of these generator size categories you fall into. If you receive this form, then our records indicate that you are a VSQG, but your generator size can change over time, so we're checking in to make sure things are still the same for you. If you aren't sure what generator size your business is, you can review our presentation titled, "What is your generator size?" to help figure this out. Sometimes a business that we have in our records stops making hazardous waste altogether. If that's true of your site, and you are never going to make hazardous waste again, check the box in line number 3. Please note that there are 3 types of hazardous waste in New Hampshire that have some special regulations. These wastes are used oil being recycled, universal waste, and pharmaceutical waste. These wastes are hazardous waste, but we aren't interested in tracking them with the self-certification program if they're already being managed under their specific, less stringent rules. So, if you have those items, please don't include them when figuring out how much hazardous waste you make. If you do not make any hazardous waste, or you only make used oil for recycle, universal waste, and/or pharmaceutical waste, then please check box number 3. I mentioned that as part of the packet we mail or email you, you get 2 forms, the VSQG self-certification form and the RCRA site identification form. The next item we look at, section C, refers to both of these forms. You will probably want both of them in front of you to get through this section. Item C1. If your business is still making hazardous waste, please read through the RCRA form that we sent you and make any changes to incorrect information. Here's a look at all 4 pages of the form. You will see the copy we sent you already has all of the information on file for your site filled in. Please read through each item and make any changes needed for contacts, addresses, waste streams, etc. Remember, put a line through anything that's incorrect, write in the correct information, and sign the form on the last line in ink so we know that it was you that made the changes. If all of the information is already correct, you don't need to do anything with this form, but it is helpful for you to sign and date it to verify that it is still accurate. The $150 notification fee associated with the notification form is not due for any updates, unless you've moved locations or changed ownership. If you are a new generator, you may have to complete this form from scratch, and the $150 fee associated with this form would be due. Now back on the self-certification form. Let's look at item 2, section C. Remember in the previous section where there was a checkbox if you weren't making hazardous waste anymore? If that is the case, here we ask you to either update the RCRA form with those details or submit a VSQG and SQG inactivation/declassification form. That should do it for the RCRA site identification form. So let's go back to the self-certification form and continue moving forward with that. Moving on to page 3, we'll look at section D. Here, we're trying to get a summary of what type of waste you make and how much. This information also gives us a sense of whether you make the same amount every month or whether you have a lot of variation in how much you make from month to month. Some businesses are seasonal in their operations, and others can vary a lot depending on what contracts they're working on. Let's look more closely at this section. For starters, section D, number 1. D1 asks you to list hazardous waste you make. Again, we don't need you to include used oil being recycled, any of the universal waste or pharmaceutical waste managed under their own respective rules that we mentioned earlier. Try to be kind of specific in your description though. For example, lab waste doesn't tell us a lot about what it is, since labs can make all kinds of hazardous waste. A description of solvent lab waste or corrosive lab waste would be better. A description that names the specific chemicals would be best, and if you can fit it in the space, even better. If there aren't enough lines for all the hazardous waste that you make, feel free to write them on an extra sheet of paper and attach them to the form. In the same section, include how these wastes were made. Here, a general description of the type of process is fine, such as paint gun cleaning or metal plating line cleanout. Now that you've listed what hazardous waste you make, tell us, to the best of your ability, how much total hazardous waste you make each month. We aren't looking for an average, so please do your best to figure out how much you make in each separate month. We realize you won't be perfect, but do what you can. I'd also like you to recognize that how much you make each month is not the same as how much you shipped, since your shipments are probably infrequent and irregular and don't always reflect how much waste is actually put into the waste containers each month. If you did not create any waste in a given month, you can leave that section blank. Section D, number 3, asks how much hazardous waste you have stored at your business at the time you're filling out the form. This gives us a snapshot of how much waste might typically be at your site. Remember, we're only interested in hazardous waste, so please don't include dangerous chemical products, any universal waste, or used oil for recycle that you might also be storing. Section D, number 4, asks if you are maintaining written hazardous waste determinations for all of your waste streams. The hazardous waste rules say that you're supposed to keep copies of any documentation you use to make these decisions on file. That documentation might include product labels, safety data sheets from the product manufacturers, lab test results, transporter waste profiles, tech sheets from a product manufacturer, or anything else provided to you with information about the materials and processes you use to make your decisions. If you do not have these determinations documented, be sure to get that paperwork in order before submitting your forms to NHDES. If you need assistance, we have a fact sheet and worksheet on our website to help you with these documentations. And lastly, Section D, number 5, asks if you create used oil for recycle, universal waste, and/or pharmaceutical waste that is managed under their own less stringent rules. If you do check yes to any of these boxes, please read the guidance documents referenced to be sure that you are managing those waste streams accordingly to the respective rules. In addition to the actual rules, NHDES has developed fact sheets and guidance documents to help you even more. That's it for this presentation. You finished the first 3 pages of the form. Way to go, you're halfway there. Next, let's grab this form and get away from our desk to take a look at where our hazardous waste is stored. One of the goals of this form and this program is to have us look at how we're storing our waste, to see if there's anything we could be doing wrong. Then, if we are, we can fix it before it causes any problems, and maybe we'll learn something in the process. The next presentation will walk through how to inspect your waste storage area. We'll try to help you understand what we want and help explain why we have these regulations. We have more presentations to help you understand these and other regulations. But if you'd just like to talk to a person, we want to help. Give us a call at one of these numbers during normal working hours. Please leave a message if we don't connect and we'll return your call. If email is your preference, we've got you covered. You can reach us at vsqg@des.nh.gov.